hot in there. I know it was ridiculous, but I just couldn't help myself. Hello, welcome to the Freakish Lemon video podcast. I am your host, the Freakish Lemon. I go by Adrian and I use masculine pronouns. Welcome back to any returning viewers, and welcome new viewers to the madness herein. The show notes for this episode will be over at my website at freakishlemon.com. And we have a Ravelry group, the Freakish Lemon Video Podcast group on Ravelry. Go to the Groups tab and search Freakish Lemon. I will be right there. And you can follow me as Freakish Lemon on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Ravelry. I recently downloaded the apps for Snapchat and Periscope, both as Freakish Lemon. I don't know if I will actually end up using either of those things, but if you want to find me there, go right ahead. So, yeah. I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be a long episode. Just because of how many things have happened between the previous episode and this one. First one on my list is very obviously Star Wars. Yes. I don't know if you can tell from the things behind me / t-shirt. I am a fan. And The Force Awakens came out just after I filmed my last episode. By the time this episode goes up, I will probably have seen it 3 times. There was a week between my first and second viewing, and last weekend we didn't go see it, so I might go see it again tomorrow. I'm filming this on Saturday, January 16th. And I don't know about other Regal cinemas, but the Regal cinemas closest to me over in Waterbury, if you have a Regal Crown Club card, movies are $5 on Sundays. And we've seen Star Wars twice now for $5, so I might go see it again. Before I get ahead of myself with Star Wars, if anybody wants to know what went into that slapdash Sith costume that just happened at the beginning of this intro, it was black shirt, a single black glove. It's an elbow glove. It's not even like a sinister glove. My Winter Soldier face mask, and my Jedi cloak. This Jedi cloak was made for me by my mother when I was in the 5th grade, 6th grade. Anyway, I was smaller than I am now, but this is one of those fabrics that, because it's so heavy, it's stretched lengthwise, so the actual body of the cloak is the right length, because as I've worn it, it's gotten longer. Unfortunately, there's a sleeve issue, because the sleeves did not get any longer. I don't know if we have any more of this fabric around, because if we do, I'm just going to lengthen the sleeves. But if not, eventually I will have to make myself a new Jedi cloak. Made especially for you by Mom. But yeah, it was, I think, just from a regular cape pattern. It didn't have armholes. And Mom took that part from another cloak pattern she found, because she liked how the hood went. It's a gathered kind of hood. But yes, I just happened to have a Jedi cloak lying around for 15 seconds of ridiculous video intro. So yes, Star Wars. Huge fan. No spoilers for me on The Force Awakens. I'm incredibly proud of how the community has been fairly spoiler-free. I am still not seeing spoilers that aren't tagged as spoilers in the places that I go, which is impressive. Usually that stuff is gone by the first week, everybody knows everything. But no spoilers from me. I really enjoyed The Force Awakens. Was it a masterpiece of new storytelling? No. But it took the things we loved about the trilogy, remixed them to give us a fresh start, to set us on the right track of where we're gonna go. So, yes. Very much enjoyed it. And we're back to characters that we want to know what happens to them. I think that was my biggest problem with the prequels, is I already knew what happened to everybody. So I was looking at story and plot, and it was full of holes. And it just didn't work out between me and the prequels. And this is somebody who grew up and loves the Ewok Adventure Caravan of Courage. So that tells you a little bit about how much I'm willing to forgive. And I couldn't. I can forgive most of the Phantom Menace. And I like what I've seen of the Clone Wars show. I like what I've seen of that. But Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith was just not great. I have warmed up to them slightly, because I've read the novelizations by Alan Dean Foster, and those fill in a lot of holes. They answer a lot of questions. So those are the only ways that I consume prequels now. But The Force Awakens was good. And I am trash for main character romantic triad. Trash. Also, Storm Pilot trash. You can gauge how excited I was by how quickly I delve into the fanfiction, and I think I was looking up fanfiction in the car on my way home from the movie theater. I have read so much fanfiction about our new protagonists. So much. It's a little worrisome. But let's calm the Star Wars down a little bit. As it will be revisited slightly throughout this episode, but we'll calm it down a little bit and move on to some other things that have happened between last episode and this episode. One of which being Christmas. Christmas was good. We spent it here at my parents' house. We did kind of our usual things. We were sent to our corners at about 10 o'clock at night, which was fine with me because I had worked Christmas Eve and I was ready for bed. Woke up Christmas morning. We had waffles, I believe, for breakfast. Parents broke out the waffle maker, made waffles. We went to church for services. most of us don't go to church anymore for various reasons throughout the year, but Christmas, we all go. And really, if you're gonna go to church once a year, Christmas is the time to do it, since it's mostly Christmas carols. And it's really pretty and decorated and all that. Came home, opened some presents. Yeah. That was Christmas. And Penny was perfect. This was her first Christmas that she can remember, because she was a tiny little 5 or 6 week old thing last Christmas. So she had no idea what was going on, but she's been great. She hasn't been drinking the tree water. She hasn't been chewing on the trees. There was one ornament that she was fixated on for a while, but that's because it was right at her nose and she could bop it. It wasn't a breakable one, but we moved it up and she hasn't bothered anything since. She didn't bother the train. Even when my mom would make the train go around the living room tree and like put her stuff on the train, she'd just sit there and watch it. And she didn't break into any presents except for her own, because all her own stuff was unwrapped. It was just neatly arranged on her new bed. And she thought it was the greatest thing ever. And she didn't play with any wrapping paper until we had taken it off of gifts. It was free on the floor, which is fair game if we're leaving wrapping paper scraps all over the place. She loved it. She loved it. My sister and her boyfriend came over later. And I think we just did snacks throughout the day. I think Mom and Dad just put out crackers and cheese and meats and cookies, and we just grazed all day. It was good. Good Christmas. No complaints from me. New Year's happened. We don't do a party or anything. My parents always tell us, invite people over if you want, just let me know if people are coming. I invited my friend Brandy and her husband and their 2 boys, who are 2 and 4, to come play with the dogs, because Gabby dropped off her dogs, because she was going to a party, because a friend of hers' birthday is January 1st, so they always do something. So we had the 3 dogs here, and my friend brought her boys over, and they played with the dogs till 6 to maybe 8:45. They were tired, so they scooted out, but it was good. And then we played. My youngest brother got the Star Trek version of Settlers of Catan, so we played Trek Catan New Year's Eve, me and my brothers and my mom, and then we all kind of dispersed, and I don't know if any of us was awake at midnight. I wasn't. I fell asleep. But I had worked that day too, so that's my excuse for not making it to midnight. Yes, which means New Year's brings us to resolutions. Everybody's talking about their resolutions on their podcast and all that, and I don't know if most of these are resolutions, as one of them is a continuation from last year, but I've got a couple of bullet points that I wanted to, goals that I'm setting for myself for this year. I want to read or listen to 24 books this year. I don't even know if I read 10 books last year, which is awful. Awful. I used to just popcorn books, just one book after another constantly. And it's been really hard, but that's why I'm saying read books and listen to books, because then, if nothing else, I can read 1 book a month and listen to 1 book a month. Because I do like audiobooks, and I like listening to audiobooks while I spin. I think I'm going to exclusively listen to audiobooks while I'm spinning, so I don't get podcast fatigue. And that's been working out well for me so far. I've been doing a lot of spinning since the first, which you'll see later. I also am going to impose upon myself monthly step goals on Fitbit. I have a Fitbit. I bought it a few years ago. Well, I bought one a few years ago, and I've had one since when I was doing regular walks to see if I could make certain goals. And I think I set my goals too high at the time because Fitbit automatically sets them at 10,000 steps a day. I work in an office, at a desk, at a computer for 8 hours a day, and I have an hour to an hour and a half driving commute. So 10,000 steps in a day was lofty. It did not work out. For the past few months, I've been just checking my average to see what it is, and during the week, if I don't make an effort to be walking around, I only put in about 3,500 steps per day. Granted, some of those steps it sounds like such a low number to me, but some of those steps are up and down stairs. I don't use the elevators at work, and we're on the 4th floor. So, so that helps, but on the weekends, it's terrible unless I'm taking the dog for a walk, especially Sundays, which are usually my lazy days. There are some Sundays where I did not even top 1,000 steps. Just 900 steps. So I'm going to set goals by month. So for January, I want 5,000 steps per day, and I'm recording them, and based on how well I do, I will reevaluate at the start of the next month. So far, I've been good about getting 5,000 steps per day. And Penny's been helping since we've gotten back into a regular non-holiday schedule. I come home usually about 5:30 at night, and she's ready to play, so I have to run with her. And right now that's in the house because it's dark and wet and sometimes icy outside. So there have been days during the week when I come home from work and I hit that 5,000 step goal without even thinking about it, which is good. So I know recording it will help me, and I'm physically recording it in a notebook. I'm not doing like a spreadsheet because I think that kind of shuffles it into the back of my mind. So I have a physical notebook that I keep next to my bed, and I record my number of steps at the end of the day each day. So hopefully by the end of the year I will have improved in terms of step count. I mean, there's only so many steps you can do in a day, but I would like to improve it much more than it is now. This year, we'll see the return of the yarn diet and stash busting. January is still a splurge month because my birthday is on the 26th, so once the calendar flips over to February, I will not be buying any yarn until September, with the exception of Stitches Midwest, because we're planning on doing Stitches Midwest this summer, and possibly a Connecticut Fiber Festival. There's one that happened last year in April. I might go to that again, but I anticipate not splurging terribly at that festival because I have so much from the from the festivals I've just been going to over the past couple of months. But outside of those two events, until September, no yarn or fiber. I have lots of fiber. I need to spin it. No yarn or fiber. And I have some podcast goals. Since this marks almost 1 year. This is episode number 12, so I have done 1 episode per month for a year. Time to reevaluate my process for this. I want to streamline my process so I can set up, film, edit, upload relatively quickly. I know the uploading takes a long time, and the rendering of the final video takes a long time. But if I can get from filming to rendering, or setup to rendering, within 1 day, that would really cut back on my producing time. So here's some things that I'm doing to streamline that. I'm going to be dropping the pop-up segment titles. Where they pop up on the screen, I'm dropping those. I tend to listen more than look at my podcast while I'm editing, mostly because this is a trick I learned back in my YouTube vlog days. Sound is slightly more important than visual. Your eyes will forgive visual things. So if you're not in HD, your brain will fill in the blanks. But auditory issues are more noticeable. So if I cut myself off in the middle of a word, you will pick that up much quicker listening than if you were to watch me speaking. So that usually helps me when I'm editing. But when I'm putting in the segment titles, I tend to listen straight through and then have to backtrack and find where I said the actual title and put it in. And it's taking too much time to get from start to finish. I'm currently dropping closed captioning. If anyone has a quick and easy way to do it, or is willing to write up transcripts of my episodes, I will put it back into place. But as it is, right now, the software that I use, I don't remember what it's called. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I use Speech Logger to listen to my videos, to log what I'm saying, but it's not good at recognizing individual words. So I have to go through and edit it and listen to my whole episode and fix the entire thing, then add it to my video, make sure it's cut at the right points, and it just takes days to do. If somebody does the transcript and is willing to do that, I would love you forever, and that would cut down on my personal producing time immensely if closed captioning is something that is really important to you. But currently, I do not have a way to do it that is time efficient. I've also slightly changed my segment titles for brevity and to encompass more things, which I'll talk about later. I plan on doing at some point within the first half of the year a craft room tour video. Because I talk about the craft room, I talk about my stash, but it's not in this room. You can't see it. So this is partially inspired by the Flash Your Stash stuff that Andy from Andre Sunitz has been doing, and I think everybody likes to see everybody's yarn stash and craft area and all that. So I anticipate doing a craft room tour video, and maybe tacking on at the end of that a tour of more of this room for my crafty things that are down here. I intend to do that. And I do intend to do a video on how I make podcasts. There's a lot of trial and error when people start their podcasts. I think it would be a good record to see in the future, how I used to do them. And nobody's ever said this to me, but I've heard other podcasters talk about people asking them how do they do their podcasts, what equipment do they use, all that kind of stuff, both audio and video. I've seen people talk about it, but nobody's that I've seen done a step-by-step process. So I want to do a video step-by-step how I note, set up, film, edit, post a podcast episode. And if all that goes well, and I do streamline this process, then in June I want to evaluate the possibility of moving to a bi-weekly schedule. These episodes get really long, being once a month, especially if I've done a lot of things in a month. So I think that might be helpful, just for everybody's sake. If there are shorter episodes more frequently, maybe that'll solve some of the problems I'm having with the production side. But we will evaluate that process in June. And if any of you have comments about any of these things that I'm talking about right now, please, or suggestions for any of the things I'm talking about right now, please go ahead and leave them in a comment either here on YouTube or in the Ravelry group, because I am open to suggestion for any part of this process. So I think I've talked about all that stuff enough for now. Further discussion is open, either off video or if you want me to talk about more of it next episode. Ask questions. I'm perfectly willing to discuss it, but let's get into all the the rest of the podcast, which I just realized I never said what kind of podcast this was at the start of the show. If you don't know, what that was a text from Gabby. She is at Vogue Knitting Live right now. I'm going to put this phone on silent. Okay, so we'll move on to the actual crafty type segments. So the first segment, previously known as Stuff on Sticks, is now just going to be knitting stuff. It's just knitting stuff. So the first thing on my list for knitting stuff is I have frogged the Cranberry Capelet by Thea Coleman in my reclaimed Vanna's Choice Lion Brand green stuff. I picked it up to start working on it after Christmas, and I said, I don't want this anymore. So I ripped it back. I don't have the luxury of time to waffle over it. I'm sure I will make one day, but I picked up that yarn and I said, this is not what I want. So I ripped it back. FOs. The only finished objects I have are gift knitting things, which I can finally share with you. I will be putting up a photo musical montage up here in a minute, but just photos. Any of the yarns, needles, patterns, all that fun stuff can be found over at my Ravelry page. All the projects are there. I believe at the time of filming this, all of the pattern, needle, and yarn information is there. I just haven't uploaded all the photos yet. They should be uploaded by the time this episode comes out. But if you need help being directed to anything that I show you in this montage, feel free to leave a comment below or message me on Ravelry. So here you go. Yep, that was all the knitting gifts. But that's the only thing I've finished. So, works in progress. I have not touched my Redford sweater project. I will. I fully intend to. I just have not managed it. I did start a new thing with the green Lion brand yarn. It's currently in my Kickstarter Skeinminder tote bag, and it is not on my notes. That's good, right? Let's pull up my Ravelry page real quick. Here we go. Remember to add that in. It is the Cashews Lap Blanket by Alice's Embrace. And I don't remember what size needles I'm using, but they're fat needles. I don't remember. And I'm not going to look it up right now. But it will be in the show notes by the time this goes up. And it is a sort of a waffle type stitch lap blanket. I'm holding the yarn 2 strands together. I'm going to... It is kind of a small blanket right now, but I am going to follow the pattern for length of the blanket, bind off, and then if I have a ton of yarn left over, or if this is not big enough, I'm going to pick up the edges and knit out into another border. To bust some stash, because blankets are always useful. Might end up a gift, might end up around the house, who knows, but you can always find a home for a blanket. And that's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's a 4-row repeat, so it's nice and easy to pick up for TV knitting. Alright, back to my show notes. The laptop for the show notes is working out for me, so I'm going to keep doing that. I've picked up the lavender bunny nuggets again. I've done a couple of bodies. Got 3 green bodies and a yellow body. This is out of the Lion brand cotton bonbons, using US 2.75 millimeter needles. But I might just leave them as nuggets and not make them bunnies. I have 2 bunnies. I'm not sure I want to fiddle with the faces and the ears. We'll see what happens. Because there's plenty of these old bonbons in here, so I have time to figure out what I want to do. And this is in my little bee bag from either JB World or Knitter Bag. I don't know, because there's business cards for both on here. Whatever. But that's just a quick thing that I pick up now and again. Because I have a ton of lavender. Do I have one of the jars over here? This is one of 2 jars. And I split the bag that I got with Gabby. So I need to make some stuff with this lavender and do something with it. Because that's a lot. Down. Okay, I also participated in the Christmas Eve cast-on, hosted by Little Bobbins, Danny. So I did a vanilla socks, because my brain was fried, out of the Gnome Acres Milk and Cookies Doppelganger set, which is a merino nylon blend, but I don't have the specific percentages in front of me. The tag is somewhere in this bag, but this bag is stuffed with cakes of yarn, so I'm not going to disturb them. So I'm knitting them concurrently on US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. I've got them in these dragon fabric DPN cozies that I made a while back. And I'm loving how this yarn is knitting up, because it looks like cookies. This is the full leg length that I'm going for, so this one has a little bit to go. And then I'm going to do a heel flap. I'm not sure whether I'm going to do a reinforced slip stitch or eye of partridge or whatever. But when I pick up for the gusset, I'm going to try a double gusset heel. I've heard good things about the double gusset heel for people with higher arches in their feet. I don't think my foot arch could be considered a high arch, but it is an arch, and that is a part where the socks can turn out to not fit so great. So I'm going to try that double gusset to see how that works. And then my Cozy Memories blanket. You'll remember that... Oh, I'm attached. Where are you? That I had restarted my Cozy Memories blanket. So it was kind of small and not very exciting for a while. Well, I've made considerable progress. Last time I showed it to you, we had looked here. This was the last square I had knit when I last showed it to you. I have knit all of these, and this is the last one from the original blanket. So I knit all those squares from the original blanket, and then I knit all these squares. I'm pretty sure these minis are from Ellie Knitter when we did a swap through the Yarngasm podcast ages ago. A couple of them might be from Diane from Peggy May Yarns and the Peggy May podcast. They were separated and labeled, but I don't know what happened. No longer. So this row, or this column, is swap yarn, swap yarn, swap yarn. This one is Madeline Tosh, a unicorn tail I bought on the yarn crawl in September. I don't remember the name of the yarn off the top of my head. These two, let's scrunch that up more, shall we? This one and this one are Bacon and Eggs, merino nylon, from the No Makers Ron Swanson special. And these 5 are also No Makers in various bases from a mini skein grab bag. And I think I figured out my definitive way of doing these squares. And I filmed a little tutorial for you guys last weekend in how I knit my squares. I'm going to explain what I do and put the video over my explanation, but it might not completely match up, just so you know. So I start with the tools you need for your Cozy Memories blanket. I have needles, I have a crochet hook, I have a stitch marker, I have yarn. I don't remember if I had scissors on the table. Whatever. So I'm going to show you first how I pick up my stitches. I'm going to show you one of the inside squares first. In the first couple stitches it will be a little bit fiddly. But what I do is I take my small crochet hook and I stick it through where I want to pull the yarn through. Pull the yarn through and I put it on the needle. Find the next space, put the crochet hook through, pull a yarn loop through, put it on the needle. And I keep going until I have 20 loops on my needle. Place a stitch marker, and then I do the same thing for the rest of the row. I pick up another 20 stitches this way. I find this to be quicker than just picking up with the knitting needles, and easy to fix if I miscount. And then I spent a weekend relearning how to knit backwards because I was getting tangled in this blanket. It was much too long. This way I could keep the long end of it rolled up and out of the way, and I don't have to worry about turning the piece. So I relearned it by basically, when I knit across the front row, I turned the work around a bunch of times to see what my needles were doing. So when you knit normally, you put your needle up through the front loop to the back, wrap the yarn towards you and over the needle, and pull it through. So to knit backwards, and the first couple stitches on this are also fiddly because of this, and you have to reteach your hands how to do this. But you stick the needle, your left hand needle, through the back loop, from the back to the front. You hold your yarn in the front, you wrap under to the back, around over the top to the front, and pull it through. And you do that over and over again. It is slow going at first. I still don't knit backwards as fast as I knit forwards, but it saves me time on untangling myself from my blanket. So you knit backwards across the row. And then on the front side is where I do my decreases. So I knit until 2 before the stitch marker, knit 2 together, slip the stitch marker, slip, slip, knit through the back loop, knit to the end. And then I knit backwards again, same way as before. Stick the left hand needle through the back loop up towards you, wrap the yarn under it, and then over back towards you, pull it through. And that's how I do it. I will include a link to the full unedited video if you want to watch that process again. I don't know how much editing, at the time of filming this, I don't know how much editing I've done to that video in order to fit it with my narration, so I will make sure that that full unedited length of video is available for you to watch if you want to learn how to do it. I know that's not a method for everybody, but I've found it's really helpful, especially when I get to like this part where there's 6 stitches left on the needle. Turning the work just seems like too much of a hassle to me at this point, when I've managed to figure out how to knit backwards. So I'm estimating that this blanket is past the halfway width point. And I still have a ton of minis in this bag to go through. So I will be focusing on this blanket for a while. When I'm at home. So you might not see any finished objects in large quantities for a while. So let's quickly move us on to crochet stuff. I have done some crocheting since finishing Christmas gifts. I did 13 squares for the scrap stuff. And that's nice. I'm liking getting back into that. I anticipate using a lot more of this scrap stuff this year to bust stash, which I'm very pleased by. But that's the only crocheting I've done since the last episode. So I'm going to call this next segment fiber stuff. This was previously stuff on spindles and wheels, but by my first 2 finished objects, it's not exclusively spinning anymore. And I blame Andy from Andre Sunitz and her daughter, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head because I didn't write it down. I told myself I would not get into this because, frankly, me and sharp things is a dangerous combination, but I have started needle felting. I blame you, Andy. I blame you. It's your fault. So the first thing I did, I went to Michael's, and I bought one of those kits, and I made a hedgehog. Now this hedgehog does not look quite like the hedgehog in the picture. And except for the giantness of its snout, it's got a much more accurate face. I don't know how well in focus this is. You can see it's got a mouth line. It has angry eyebrows. It has a crinkly nose ridge. I did the nose a different color. I used a couple different colors for the ears. Did the brown for the spine like the box said. He's got a little tail. My favorite detail, I didn't do detailed feet, but I did give this hedgehog a belly button. And a poochie belly. The box did not have a poochie belly. Hedgehogs do. I know this because when Gabby was in college, the last couple of years of college, she had a hedgehog for a pet. She kept him at college until I started cracking down on pets in the dorms, and he came to live with us for a while. His name was Wilton McSnuffles. Or McSniffles. I don't remember precisely, but his name was Wilton. He was an angry little ball of spiny fury. He was adorable, but he was angry. He would scrunch up his face and snuffle at you. He was not afraid of our cat at the time, because we did introduce them in a fairly controlled environment. Well, we brought the cat outside, we brought Wilton outside. Wilton wasn't going to go very far very quickly, and we kind of had people around to grab him if he made a run for it. And the cat went up to him, tried to touch him. Wilton charged the cat. Because that's how they scrunch their forehead spikes, is they scrunch their face in, and their forehead spikes go and so he put his spikes down and he charged the cat. Later we got him a rat ball to run around in the house, and he would just run the cat over. The cat learned that when the rat ball comes out, he needed to be on a chair or a table or not on the ground, because Wilson would run him down. This thing had no fear. He was angry. But they're such funny little creatures. We'd have to give him baths because of his ridiculous dry skin. And he had skinny little legs, and he had like skin flaps between his arms and legs there. But he had a poochy little belly. So I had to make a hedgehog, and I had to make him with angry eyebrows and a scrunchy nose and a poochy belly with a belly button. So I don't think he's that terrible for my first attempt at needle felting. And then I was playing around with leftover scrap bits from combing my giant bags of mystery wool. So I said, let's try to needle felt that. I'm not sure this is as entirely successful as I would have hoped, but I made a little wizard gnome guy. The problem with needle felting that particular wool is that there was so much air in it. It took so much stabbing to get the body compact enough to add things to it without it just completely going flat. So I would definitely recommend using processed roving for the main part of your needle felting, because there's so much air in hand processed stuff. But I made a little, like a shaped body, and he's got a big nose, he's got a beard, he's got long hair, and he's got basically a Gandalf hat. He smells a little sheepy. And he kind of looks like a ghost, I'm not even gonna lie. But that was a fun experiment, and tiny village things. The wizard gnome. He's still a little bit lanolin-y, but that is thus far my adventures in needle felting. But I gotta learn how to best do that for me, because I did both of those. Well, I did each one of them in an evening, and my shoulder was killing me just from doing this. Like stab, 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 stab. Over and over and over again. So I gotta find out what works for me, if that's gonna be a thing that I do more than occasionally. Hopefully I don't do it more than occasionally, because that's absurd. I don't need more hobbies to do. But I blame Andy and her daughter entirely. Move on to some... Oh, I forgot that little reindeer R2 was back here. If you were wondering what I was holding up in the intro, and you couldn't figure it out, I meant to talk about this at the start of the podcast, but it's this R2-D2 with antlers on, from the Lego Star Wars Advent Calendar. I was also going to hold up Santa 3PO. Oh, I can't get him without disrupting everything. But he was too indistinct. Anyway, fiber stuff. My more traditional fiber stuff. Spinning. I have done much spinning. I finished my loop bump. I think the name of it was Electric Parrot, something like that. But I managed to wind it up so that the gradient was visible. So we start with a gray, we go into an off-white, a sort of pinky red, a kind of burgundy, a bright purple, and a bright blue. This is chain plied to keep the color progression. I have not washed it to set the twist. I have not measured it for width or whatever. I've just been kind of basking in the fact that I finished spinning it. And I think this is probably the most balanced yarn I've ever spun. Like, it just, in the hank, it just twists slightly. Like, that's incredible. Usually when I take them off the nitty knotty, they're like all kinked up and but very descriptive. Meh is a great description. But this one, it only twists slightly, which tells me that this was a balanced yarn. And I'm very pleased with that, because it's all trial and error. I don't know what I'm doing. Just pretend I do. So I finished this. And I also finished my Phoenix Fiber Club June Rolags on my Turtle Made Turkish spindle. Here's my 2 spools of this. Again, has not been washed or set or measured or anything, but I really like, especially how the bottom of that one went, where it's much more blue. I don't know if I'll keep these or if I'll put them up on the shop. We'll see what they look like when I get them all proper finished. But that's nice to have done, so I can play with other things. And then I got some new things for Christmas, which resulted in me playing with weird spinning. So here's the first weird thing I spun. Let me This is what it looks like. I took 2 fondant fiber fuzzlings and I core spun them onto this weird velvety yarn that I have. And then I took that core spun and I super coiled it onto some crochet cotton. So there's a lot of thick and thin on here because I was figuring out how to core spin. And you can still see some of that weird velvet through it, like on that one. But ultimately, I'm really pleased how this turned out for an art yarn. This will probably just go up on a wall so I could admire it. I don't know what I would ever make with this, especially not this amount. This is like nothing. But I really like how this turned out. Yes. If you're interested in doing weird spinning, Spinning Art Yarns by J.C. Boggs Faulkner on Craftsy is where I learned the techniques for this. I've watched that class a couple of times. And then I did another super coil yarn. I spun a couple of fondant fiber fuzzlings just haphazardly into one ply, and then I super coiled that ply onto crochet cotton. And it's interesting. There's definitely some places where I prefer the super coil. Like this is a nice stretch of super coil. But I'm not too sure how much I like this one. I don't know if maybe the 2 fuzzlings that I used just didn't go together as well as I thought, or what. But it'll be another one to put up on the wall to look at until I figure out what to do with it. I also finished another test spin of my mystery bags of wool. This is stuff that I had scoured prior to spinning, so there was less lanolin in it. And I think this turned out really nice. Again, haven't washed, set, measured, anything. I've just been spinning like crazy and putting them aside to do them all one day. Just a constant wash, set, steam, whatever needs to happen. Fiber day. I really like this. I think I'm going to do one more test spin with more of a worsted spin. Because I'm thinking I might spin up a bunch of it in a worsted spin to do like knee-high cable socks for winter. This would be really warm and really hard wearing and perfect for cables, I think. So this is the 3-ply, this is 2-ply that's left over. Even the 2-ply is fairly plump. But I am really enjoying spinning this, and I am enjoying processing the fiber much more once it's been scoured of the lanolin. I actually brought down my bag of currently combed fluffs. It's just a pillowcase, but it's full of these fluffs, just combed fluff. It's almost like a fuzzling. But that's, I think, the most I can pull off of a comb. At least the combs that I have here with me now. Or might splurge buy more combs, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. So I can do a test spin from what I have now, but I don't want to lose my momentum in combing. Because I can't just sit there and comb it. It hurts my shoulders to just sit there and do it continuously. But I try to, when I go up to the craft room to spin or whatever, I try to comb 1 or 2 fluffs out. This way there's momentum. So I've got some more of the first bag of wool to scour completely and then comb. So I think I've got 2/3 of that bag left to do, so I don't know how long it'll take me, but I will keep you updated on where I am with my ridiculous amount of mystery wool. I also did a test spin on a new thing I will tell you about, using some of the leftover autumn fiber from my giant ball of fiber. And this isn't bad. It's definitely an inexperienced spin on this particular device. You can tell it's thick and thin all over the place, but it was a test spin. I'll probably use it for something. You can never go wrong with some autumn colored stuff. This is out of, I spun these from row legs that I made as practice using leftover fiber to get used to my blending board. So that's pretty cool. Then I also made some row legs. I have this green merino that I've had for ages, and it's starting to kind of matte up. So I spun a good chunk of it for an ongoing spinning project that I'll show you in a minute. Then I took a bunch of it and I made some row legs with some undyed BFL and some gold sparkle. I'm going to spin these myself. I'm keeping them. But if something like this is... you guys want to see something like this in the shop, let me know. So I might consider putting some up there once I've had more practice and kind of getting them a little bit more uniform. This one's a little skinnier than the other ones. But my current spinning project is using 2 different fibers. This is a bobbin of that green merino. I bought it at the Coventry Farmers Market ages ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So I needed to spin it up before it became unspinnable. And this is going to be 1 ply of a 3 ply. The other 2 plies are going to be out of this Highland Handmaids BFL in the ROM colorway. This is half of the fiber. The spool that I'm spinning on is still on the wheel, but this is the fiber I've got left to spin. So it's these bright highlighter oranges with brown and green and undyed spots. Some of the colors are getting a bit muddied, but because BFL is a longer fiber than merino, which is what I'm used to spinning, the strands tend to have more than one color on them, so you can't even separate them out by color very well. But it'll be interesting to see them all plied together. I think it'll have more of like a moral effect, which will be interesting. And if I don't figure out anything to do with that 3 ply immediately, I'll probably designate it for socks, because I love wearing my hand spun socks. They're so warm and wonderful. So that's fiber stuff these days. Lots of fiber stuff. Yeah. I've done a lot of spinning. That whole listening to audiobooks only when I'm spinning really works. You end up wanting to do a lot of spinning and fiber work because you want to hear what happens next. So that will move us on to sewing stuff, which used to be stuff with thread. Sewing stuff. I'm lumping in cross stitch with sewing stuff. It's the same motions as sewing. I'm gonna count it as sewing stuff. And speaking of, I finished, finally, my Christmas cross stitch. This is a pattern from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. It clearly needs to be ironed. And I did buy a frame for it. It's kind of a giant frame. And it's buried under things over there right now. But the interior, there's 2 mat boards in it, but the interior is 8 by 8, and this is 7.5 by 7.5. And it's a gray frame, like a wintry gray. So I think that will look nice. I may end up having to cover one of the mat boards with a holiday paper because of how this looks against the white, but I will see what that looks like when I frame it. But I'm so glad to finally have this done. I'm taking a break from cross stitch for a while just because this was killing my brain. But I do have the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery Fiber Friends pattern that I want to do to have up year round, so that is finally done. I don't know if I showed you the beginning of this project, but I made a project bag out of a thing that I had already made. It's Star Wars. I had made this originally as a rectangle, no zipper, for my work laptop because my shoulder bag that I was using, it was getting banged up in there. But I bought a new backpack to use instead, which actually helps with my shoulder issues. To have the weight up top instead of dragging me down. So, whoops, I'm going to tack that in. So it was basically a flat quilted envelope. And what I did was I boxed the corners by whip stitching them down on the inside. So if I want to make this like an envelope again, I could just tear out the gray stitches. It's not the prettiest, but it would have been hard to do a proper or regular boxing with these French seams in here. Because what I did to make the envelope is a long rectangle piece of fabric, batting fabric, quilted it, trimmed it down, put binding on the top and bottom edges, and then French seamed the sides, which means I sewed about a 1/4 inch in on the right side, folded it inside out, sewed about a 1/2 inch so that you trap the raw edges inside of this seam. But on a quilted piece, it makes a really fat seam. So I didn't want to box the edges in the normal way just because of that really fat seam. So I just tacked it down. And I didn't do anything to the box edge on this side, so it is still open. But if that bothers me, I will fix it. And then last night I hand sewed in this zipper, which is why we've got little flappies up here. If I didn't hand sew it in, I would have had to take this whole thing apart to put a zipper in. And that's just no fun. So I just hand stitched it in. I just back stitched along. Which you can do without having to have access to both sides of the fabric. You can do it so you're not going down and back and down and back. You can do it so that you're kind of going like floop, floop, floop. If that makes sense. Any hand stitchers out there probably could make sense of what I just said, but I'm sorry to the rest of you. Needless to say, is I hand stitched it in. My stitches are not the worst thing ever. This will work as a project bag. Because I do love this fabric. And this is a good size bag for this fabric. It's hard to do smaller things because of how big the print is. Fuzz. Anyway, so I sewed that. And I have done nothing with my Hawkeye quilt because upstairs is still kind of crazy town and it's hard to get between the iron and the sewing machine. And here's the segment that everybody wants to know in the episode after Christmas. New stuff. New stuff. So for Christmas, my parents bought me the jumbo flyer kit for my Ashford kiwi. I got fuzz all over me. So it has a much wider orifice, so I could do things like fat art yarns. Also has much bigger bobbins. We'll get a comparison. Here's a regular one, here's a jumbo. Apparently there's even a super jumbo, which my mom had ordered one of those bobbins by mistake. But we sorted it out with the woolery, and I have 3 of these bobbins in total. And she did get me extra bobbins. It comes with one, and she bought me 2 extra ones. So that's lovely. I really like using the jumbo flyer for plying. That's how I plied my loop bump single for the chain plying, because I know I over twist my chain plies, and I think some of it had to do with getting the hand motions right in time for the wheel to turn. But with the jumbo flyer, you have a much bigger drive band on it, so there's less twist per revolution. So there is more time to get your hands where they need to be in order to do a smooth chain ply, which I want to do all my plying on the jumbo. Firstly, because the bobbins are bigger, so I don't have to cut it off for, 4-ounce braids. And also because I have more control over the ply with a slower spin. I also got, from my parents, a Blackfoot spindle. If you watch the Once Upon a Corgi podcast, you may have seen this already, but it is a Native American spindle that is spun horizontally. It is not spun vertically. You spin it so that your fiber comes off the edge of this tip, and it coming off the tip puts the twist in. It kind of loops it around. It just goes. And then you wind what's on here, back here. There are videos online on how to spin on a Blackfoot spindle. Or if you've seen anybody spin on a Navajo spindle. It's the same principle, but Navajo spindles are bigger. And this is what I spun this on. We just had a Christmas Day spinning party, the two of us. Just spinning away on our spindles. You can spin like this, just in your hand. But what I like to do is actually roll it down my leg, or up my leg, depending on which way I need to go. This way I don't have to keep adjusting my grip. But this is fun. I look forward to playing around with this spindle. I'm becoming a spindle collector, is what's happening. But this was really fun to learn how to do. And then also for Christmas, Gabby, my sister from the Once Upon a Corgi podcast, gave me a couple of things. She made me a project bag, a Star Wars project bag. But not just any Star Wars project bag. She lined it in this satiny type stuff for fiber specifically. This is a spinning project bag, which is very exciting because I don't have any of those. My spinning tends to just stay out on the counter. I've got fuzz everywhere. And she included a pocket to stick any spindles or any other bits that I might need in there. And it's very lovely. It's a little small for my Blackfoot, but any of my other spindles will fit in there nicely. So I can be a mobile spinner, which actually might come in handy because one of the new ladies at work is a crafter, and we've taken to knitting together on our lunch break, and she wants to learn how to drop spindle. So I may end up taking spindling things to work one day to spin on lunch. But beautiful bag, and it's Star Wars. It's 2 different Star Wars fabrics. That fabric and this fabric. And I believe the Vader fabric glows in the dark. Am I remembering that right? I don't know. It might. Some of the fabrics do. And with that, she also bought me some dewdrop lights. Laura. Names are hard. From the Knit Girls podcast, did core spun lights, so she bought me some lights to core spin with. But the only ones she could find were these pink hearts. We've been on the lookout for other ones, but I figure if I'm core spinning them, they probably won't look very heart-like by the time I'm done. I'll just have to get a good contrasting color on there. Then I can put these up with my other lights over my bulletin board. And that'll be cool. Something to play with. Also from Gabby, not a Christmas present though. This was an exchange for use of my blending board. She came over one day. I was at work. She spent the whole day here playing with my blending board to make Rolags while I was at work. And I came home to a pile of them and she said, pick which ones you want. So I picked these ones. They're kind of blue, gray, white, from that local Connecticut wool from the, I don't remember the name of the spinnery, but it's a local spinnery that she got this wool from. And I'm very excited to spin those up. Then what's next in my list? Needle felting supplies. So let me show you my needle felting supplies that I bought. This is what came with the kit. Actually, I think only one of these needles came with the kit. And then some fiber and a little foam thingy. And some junk. But I'm keeping like my little pieces in this container for the kit. I also got this block of foam to play with. And I bought this pen 3 needle stabby thing on Amazon. Because I knew as soon as I bought the kit that just doing that with one needle was going to take me 10,000 years. So I think this was maybe $10 for the 3 needle pen. And then I have 1 needle and a couple of other spare needles for fine detail felting. And then because who doesn't have enough wool for needle felting, I bought some wool roving from Wool Pets, natural roving, in natural colors to do things with. So we've got a black, a white, a very dark brown, a gray, a brown, and a kind of tan. But I haven't broken into it yet. I bought, because I've only got the rest of this month to buy yarn, I bought mini skeins from the Buffalo Wool Company. This is in their Trax base, which is 90% superwash merino, 10% bison down. I'm going to make a stripy type cowl out of these. I do have a cowl made out of Buffalo Wool Company yarn, which has a much higher bison content, but it is scratchy on my neck. I have to line it with something. But this is much softer, even just touching the mini skeins. So I will still have a buffalo cowl, even if I never end up getting around to lining the other one. I'll have this one. And I think this will make a much taller cowl. I'm trying to figure out what I like in my warm neckwear. But I think this will be fun. And there's lots of pretty colors to play with for stripy things. And I got a couple of things in the mail. I sent out a couple of packages for Christmas because I wanted to give some people some things. And I got a couple packages back. I got a package from Andy of Andre Sue Knits. And she sent me couple of things. She sent me some of her mini skeins, which I'm looking forward to putting into my blanket. She sent me this tiny sheep, And she made me this gnome. This little needle felty gnome. Who is holding a freakish lemon. Oh, he's probably very blurry because I'm putting him right up to the lens, but he's holding a little freakish lemon. Which is amazing. He's so cool. Thank you so much, Andy. No, it's crinkly and everywhere. Just throw all the things out of the way. And then I got another package from Mary from the Yarnaceuticals podcast. And she sent me a package with a few things in it. She sent me this amigurumi sheep. She really likes doing amigurumi, so it was really cool to get a piece of hers in this multicolored sheep. And she sent me an ornament, a crocheted snowflake, which is very lovely. This is great. And she sent me some mini skeins. Let me unwrap. And some tea. And a guitar button. I forgot how much stuff was in here. But she did send me some mini skeins to add to my blanket. So thank you so much, Mary. I can't wait to use these yarns. What's this one? Cotton, merino, and llama. I didn't even look at these tags. That'll be interesting to work with. Yeah, so I can't wait to play with these and put them in my blanket either. Let's get that out of the way. So good at organizing things. This is going to be a mess. And then for New Year's, my local yarn shop, the New England Yarn and Spindle shop in Bristol, was having a sale. And one of the pairs of mittens that I made for Christmas for a friend of mine, the cable-y ones, I really liked making those. And those fit my hand perfectly. So I figured I need to get some yarn to make some cable-y mittens. I don't know if this will be the yarn for those mittens. It's not screaming at me. It might end up a hat instead. I still have time to buy yarn. I might still buy yarn that will scream cable-y mittens. But I bought some Perfection by Kramer yarns. It's an acrylic wool blend. It's 30% merino, 70% acrylic. In the Fieldstone colorway. It's pretty woolly to the feel. It doesn't feel like sometimes that acrylic feels where it's a little bit sticky. I don't know if anybody else feels that when you feel acrylic yarn. Sometimes that happens, depending on how old it is and how long it's been there. But it's a lovely gray color, and it would look good in those cables. I'm just not sure if I really want it for those cables yet, but I like my local yarn store. I like to support them, and they were having a New Year's Day party. They were open New Year's Day at their normal time, and they had grab bags and prizes and snacks and things, so we figured we might as well go and hang out and get some yarn. And I also bought this spinning wheel stitch marker. Let me take it out of the bag. It's there we go. A spinning wheel stitch marker. Because I thought that was super cool. And then, because I can't stop myself, because I know my buying time is going to end soon, I bought a huge box of yarn from Craftsy. I found this pattern for a jacket that I want to try to make. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but something I want to try to make, and I'm going to make one in this color first, And if I really like the jacket, I might make it in foresty colors for a potential future Fae costume. But I bought 6 skeins of Lion Brand Scarfy, which is an acrylic wool blend, I believe. Yeah. Which I think would work fine for a jacket, especially if it's just a jacket and not like a heavy coat. Because heavy coats I feel like are worth taking more hand care of. This I could throw in the wash, just in the washing machine if I need to. But it's black and gray, gradient marl type stuff. And that will eventually, possibly, be a jacket. And I think that's all the new stuff. If I've missed anything, I will share it with you in the next episode. And now Etsy stuff. I am going to slow down on a bunch of the stuff on my Etsy shop right now. My Moleskine notebooks, I'm going to sell what's there, and then I'm going to put up custom listings. So you would order a notebook, I would make it, and then I would send it to you, as opposed to making a bunch and then waiting to sell them. So anything that's up there now is available. There is one made-to-order Marvel pack listing for 3 to 6 or however many Marvel designs I have. And the Shrinky Dink stitch markers, I'm not replenishing the same way right now. I think in the future I'm going to do those stitch markers like I'm doing my Progress Keeper and Snackless stitch marker sets. So you would get, for example, in the Doctor Who ones, you would get a TARDIS, a Doctor Who logo, and a Rassilon seal, and then a set of Snackless stitch markers, as opposed to 2 of each of those things. Just because it takes so long to draw out multiple versions of all these little symbols. But I'm going to be reevaluating that. The Progress Keepers and Snackless stitch marker sets that I've been talking about, I'm pushing myself, should be up by the time this video goes up. If they're not, yell at me. Find me somewhere. Social media, Ravelry, yell at me. Put up those stitch marker sets. I've also been working on some other stitch markers. Just because I have a lot of stuff I can make stitch markers out of. I have 4 of these wooden bead sets. I don't know if these are going to go up in the shop right away, or if I'm going to reserve them for giveaway prizes for the 2016 Start Something New Cal. I'll let you know by next episode. And I'm working on a bucket of pony bead stitch markers. I have a ton of pony beads. Well, not a ton, but a lot more than I should have, considering that I don't think I've made anything with pony beads since I was 8. So they're just dangly stitch markers, and I will either start giving them away as prizes, or I will sell them by the bag. However many will fit in a specific size little Ziploc bag. Like a 1x3 or a 3x4 bag. You just fill it. Just grab bag rainbow stitch markers. Because I like them, but I'm never going to use as many as I'm going to make. So those will be up at some point. When I have enough colors added to this bucket. Let's move us on to other stuff. So the Start Something New 2016 Cal is open. This is a first quarter of the year, start something new, knit along, craft along, whatever you want. Must be fiber related. You can knit, crochet, spin, weave, process fiber for the first time. All the rules are up in the chatter thread. Are they up in the chatter thread? Might just be up in the entry thread. But they are there in the threads. The threads are up. There have been some comments left on them. Feel free to participate. There will be giveaway prizes at the end, pulled from the entry thread. You do not have to finish the item that you start, as long as we get one in-progress photo on your entry. And it's one entry per project. So if you do 3 new things on one knitting project, it only counts for 1. But if you do 3 different knitting projects that are something new, if you do cables for the first time on one thing, if you do brioche for one thing for the first time on another thing, and you do lace for the first time on another thing, you can do 3 separate entries. 1 for each thing. This cal is running from January 1st to March 31st, and I will draw for the winner during my April episode. Tag your Instagram or Twitter or Tumblr or whatever stuff with Lemon 2016 Cal, LEMON 2016 KAL, so we can all see your projects. And I would like to thank our first prize sponsor, other than that giant box of yarn that was sent to me by Java Suan. RS Island Crafts, I think is how you say that name. I should have clarified. I don't know if RS stands for something, but RS Island Crafts is supplying a couple of project bags for this cal. And she has a coupon code up, which is LEMON15, LEMON15, from now until the end of March for 15% off your purchase. I will include the link everywhere. Go buy her bags. They're pretty cool. I got the package for her bags yesterday. Perfect timing. So she is giving us 2 project bags and a skein of yarn to give away. But I think what I'm going to do is put together kits, like a bag and a yarn, maybe some stitch markers for prizes. So she told me I could keep one of the bags if I wanted to. But I'm going to give it away as much as it pains me. Just because my sister already made me a bag in this fabric. If it was a different fabric, it might be a different story. But she sent this Star Wars bag. It's a Snaps bag. There's the inside fabric. And it's lined. It's got like almost like a really thin batting line. This would be great for a sock project. And I'm going to pair with this bag for the prize. She also sent this Lana Mundy Yarns Silver Spun, which is 87% combed cotton, 11% silver, and 2% lycra. The silver means lots of things. There's a card with all the things that the silver means. But if you make yourself a pair of mittens with this, you can use your touch screen phone because the silver will conduct the heat from your finger. So you can still use your phone with mittens on. I'm going to pair that together with the Star Wars bag. Actually, let me put it in here so I don't forget. And I will take pictures and put them up when I figure out exactly what the prize packages will be. I will take pictures of them together and put them up in the entry thread. And she also sent this bag, this jalapeno chipotle pepper bag, which is the same construction as the Star Wars bag, a little sock bag, lined interior fabric, and I'll pair a yarn with this from the big box of yarn that's upstairs, the big box prize yarn. So that's very exciting. Thank you so much. Remember, go to RS Island Crafts. I'll put a link to her shop and you can use code LEMON15 for 15% off until the end of March. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see who wins these. Let me put these back in this bag to get it out of the way, but not get it mixed up with all my other things. So for the rest of other stuff I am watching. I watched the Doctor Who Christmas special, which I have mixed feelings about, but I liked River in it, so that's something. I was watching more Murder, She Wrote. Star Wars. And I recently started rewatching season 1 of Elementary. I want to catch up on that show, but I don't remember where I left off, so I'm just starting from the beginning, watching the whole thing again. Stuff I'm reading. I finished the Necronomicon audiobook in December. Oh, I hear Crazy Dog. She got a bath today. I started reading Planet of Twilight by Barbara Hambly. It's a Star Wars book. It's a paperback Star Wars book, but it's actually in this backpack. I thought it might have been across the room. It was not. Planet of Twilight. Which I really like so far, and I'm making good progress on. I re-listened to Death Troopers by Joe Schreiber, the audiobook. I love Star Wars audiobooks. The audio production on it is so good. It has background music, has sound effects, it has... if there are Wookiees talking, they use Wookiee sounds instead of pretending that we can't hear them. They use droid sounds, they use blaster sounds, they use ship sounds. It's really, really good and immersive what they do with the Star Wars audiobooks. And Death Troopers is... whew, it's something. It freaks me out. I had to finish it, the last couple chapters, in the car in the morning so I wouldn't give myself nightmares. Death Troopers. It's what happens when you have zombie virus in space. So if you like those things, Death Troopers is for you. And I started listening to The Force Awakens audiobook novelization by Alan Dean Foster because I could not stop myself. It's interesting to listen to it as opposed to read the novelization. They do character voices, the guy who narrates it, who I can't remember off the top of my head, but they don't necessarily match to how the characters actually sound. Han Solo in that book kind of sounds like John Wayne a little bit. It's very weird. And Finn sounds weird in the book, but, I mean, it's somebody doing a voice. If you can get past it, it's not a big deal. But I do like listening to it. There's, again, like the other novelizations, it fills in some stuff. There's scenes in the book that aren't in the movie. Stuff I'm playing. I've played some board games with my family for Christmas and New Year's. Haven't played any video games. Which I keep telling myself I'm going to do, and then I don't. So, I don't know. And podcasts. Oh, so many podcasts. I went through my audio podcasts, and I weeded out a bunch of stuff. I weeded out about a third of the podcasts that I listened to. And I'm not ready to start weeding out video podcasts yet, but I did pick up a new one. Dr. Kelly from Halsey Yarn on Etsy. She has an audio podcast called U University. I think it's an audio podcast. Which I have not listened to, but she's been doing these live stream U University Live things on Periscope. And she puts the videos up on YouTube afterwards. And Andy was talking about them on her podcast, and somebody else was talking about it because Andy was talking about it on her podcast. So I started watching them, and now I can't stop. So, yeah. So those are are on my list of things to watch. I've been watching, and it's been really informative. I've been really enjoying them. Yeah, but I'm trying not to pick up any more podcasts for a while. Trying. I can't stop. It's a little ridiculous. I just hope nobody starts recommending any Star Wars podcasts. It's gonna kill me to listen to any more podcasts. I don't have the time. I'm consistently 2 weeks behind on audio and a week behind on video. It's a little ridiculous. And I think that's the end of the podcast episode. Finally. I think we finally reached the end. This is why I'm thinking of maybe going bi-weekly. Once I get this process down. Because we're all a little bit exhausted by the end of it. And it takes me so long to film. Dad's trying to chase Penny. So with that, I'm going to sign off now. Show notes and everything will be over at freakishlemon.com. My laptop is also running out of battery, which that's what that ding was. Come and join us over at the Freakish Lemon video podcast group on Ravelry. Just search Freakish Lemon under the groups tab. You can follow me as Freakish Lemon on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Ravelry, Snapchat, and Periscope if you want, until I figure out what I'm going to do with those things. And check out my shop over at freakishlemon.etsy.com and grab some stuff that you might not be able to get later, depending on how I decide 2016 is going to run my shop. All the links will be below to get to all the places. Thank you all for watching. This has been a really good experience for me this year, and I'm looking forward to doing it again in 2016. So, Happy New Year. Happy birthday to me. Star Wars. Goodbye.